We're going to go into a little bit of game history and then talk some game news as well. Should be a fun one. Let's start with the history. Taking it back to the good old days. And let's do it. Let's see. What am I starting with here? The first one, on this day, 31 years ago, the year 1992, Psycho Dream came out on the Super Famicom. Anybody familiar with this title? I think I had seen the title, but I wasn't really familiar with the game. I had just seen it under obscure games or hidden gems or something along those lines. But yeah, it was a release for the Super Famicom, Psycho Dream. It looked like kind of a fairly interesting game, and I pulled a little blurb about it from Game FAQs, and yeah, this is a very exciting half a second of gameplay right here on the screen, just repeated over and over again. But Binary wants to get this one. Cool. Yeah, all right, so it might be a little before Fireball's time. Well, yep, I would have been pretty young when this was out. Let's see, what was that, 1992? Yeah. But I did exist. Oh, yeah. So, what's funny is they tried to release this for the Super NES and even did a mock-up of the... they had the box art ready to go, and they were going to change the name to Dream Probe, which I don't know if I'm totally down with that name, to be honest.
Whoa, nice graphics! I'd like to get my hands on that game.
Dream Probe. It's not... It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. But they had a box art for it, and let me get to the little write-up about it. Yeah, Dream Probe was planned for release sometime in 93 or 94. This is outside of Japan. This was another Telenet game, which that's kind of mind-blowing in and of itself. It was a Telenet game that was being planned for release in the US. The game's a side-scrolling action game featuring a main character with a sword-like weapon. Like other Renovation games, it was likely not released due to the fact that Renovation was bought by Sega. February 1993 issue of Nintendo Power mentioned this game. The January 1994 issue of Nintendo Power lists it as having a release during September 1993, though obviously that it didn't happen. It only came out in Japan. So, yeah, kind of crazy. This one, they even got a box for it. They put a blurb about it in Nintendo Power, and then Nintendo Power even came and said that it had been released when it never was. So it never got released in the US. So yeah, kind of an interesting one, got lost in the mix. The reviews were, like 3 out of 5 stars, and I mean, I don't know that this is anybody's absolute favorite game. Oh, I'm sure it's somebody's, but that is to say, it seems like it seemed like it was a decent game, just from the little bit that I gleaned. But having not played it, maybe I shouldn't be out here trying to judge it. But yeah, that was 31 years ago that Dream Probe came out, and then never came out in the US. I guess, let's see, what do they say, like 93 was the Phantom release? So 30 years ago, this thing did not release in the US. Then yeah, start your class action lawsuit, get the tort in. I think we got a case, guys. We gamers have been damaged. All right. Thank you. And we salute you. Dream Probe. Spoiler alert, getting to that in a second. Whoopsie. On the same day, a couple things came out. One was Gran Turismo 2. GT2. I did play this one. I think I eventually got it, or a buddy. I ended up borrowing it for a while from a buddy, but yeah, Gran Turismo 2 is a really fun. It was a really fun game. Also hard as shit if you were used to like Mario Kart. This was a simulation, of course. I remember doing, in those early Gran Turismo, doing like the early medal challenges, or just to get your licenses. And I remember being like, wait, what? This is kind of hard. I have to brake within this spot. And I mean, you get good as one does, but they did for the time a good approximation of the physics of driving and yeah, GT4, yeah, that's a big one. We celebrated the release of that one not too long ago. Yeah, and that's interesting about Earthbound too, Binary. Yeah, it wasn't to be, you know. Or yeah, was that the first one or whatever? Which one are you? Because I guess Earthbound, that second game in that series came, right? I don't know my timeline for it, but yeah. If you put it in the chat, I'll read it, even if I don't mention it out loud. But yeah. So GT2, Gran Turismo. This was a pretty fun one. It came out in 1999. Also in high school, I was impressed because with these games, I could play. I think with Gran Turismo 4, I believe, or 2, at least with some of the other games, I could play with the car that I had at the end of high school. So that was pretty badass, you know. There was a very short time where I was a motorhead. I don't know. I don't think motorhead is the correct term either. I'm thinking about that because just last night a Motorhead song came on and he mentioned like I'm a motorhead in the song or something, and I was like, well, what is a motorhead? It's like someone who does a lot of speed. I don't know. But anyway, Gran Turismo 2, yeah, kind of crazy. Like I said, my high school car was in it, the 240SX. I think they had the Japanese version of it. And yeah, for a very short time, I was a bit of a dumbass. And when it came to, you know, trying to dorifto or, you know, do a little bit of racing with the friend. Glad I didn't die, kill, maim, or otherwise injure anybody or myself. Yeah. Now these days I'm kind of if I have to drive, I'm just like trying to go to from point A to point B. That's it, as one does. The 240S. I don't know if I get your joke there, Binary. But yeah. Fireball said Motorhead, a fan of motors and vehicles. There you go. I was a Motorhead for a couple of years, you know. Or a fan of the a Motorhead head. Yeah, Motorhead freak. Motorhead head. I like it. So yeah, 24 years ago, Gran Turismo 2. Oh, the memories. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a system that never came to the US. I don't think it made it out. It didn't make it out of Japan, other than down at your local import shop. Not Gran Turismo. The 64. I said 60. I'm still in like Turismo. 60. The 64DD. The Nintendo 64 attachment. The 64DD. This one got a lot of coverage in Nintendo Power. And I remember thinking it looked really cool. And the thing is, like, by the time they got it rolling, I think they'd already pulled the plug on ever bringing it outside of, outside of Japan. So yeah, the 64, this was the box art for it, which I just think is really rad. Good box art, you know. Love the sort of like I don't know, I love the coloration on it. Interesting little add-on too, with some interesting titles for it. Here was a shot for you. This was I've got the credit up in the top right there, but yeah, disk drive, the DD, yep. And these are those discs. These are those discs that you would play, and these things look so weird to me. It's like so contoured. I don't know. It's such an interesting design. This was kind of the second time that Nintendo had the idea of like, okay, if we go to discs, like it was just a thing that it was a proposition that only worked economically for a short amount of time, and then things reversed. And I'm pretty, so the same thing happened with the Famicom disk drive, which I got one of those in the back. Maybe I'll come pull that out in a second. But, you know, they were worried about chip costs and storage and, okay, you know, cartridge. It was being very expensive to produce cartridges. And similar thing with the 64DD, where they realized that they could take those discs, or they could have a 64 meg disc. At that point, you know, there were only a few 64 games that got up to that amount. It was pretty rare that cartridges did that, but there were a handful. And it would be a little less expensive than a disc, or rather less expensive than a cartridge, but still pricier than a CD. And I think Nintendo thought that this thing would be bigger than it was. I think that maybe they planned on a US release originally. But I think into the, I think it wasn't that long before they realized, like, oh, you know, we're kind of far into this, and I think we're gonna have to scale back what this thing does, you know. Yeah, and right. Well, I guess, you know, this would, yeah, Fireball, right? Yeah, because they had that potential project that, I mean, they were going to do the PlayStation together with Sony, and that would have been, yeah, that was the big argument, right? Was disc versus cartridge. And then yeah, later they tried to and disc being like you know, CD versus cartridge. And then yeah, with this one, like I said, I think for a little bit they saw this as a cheaper way to get games out, and then have a max storage on them that only a handful of 64 games hit. But anyway, some interesting titles. That you're looking at SimCity 64 right now. Also, we have right here, we've got a lineup of games. I found this on Reddit. Again, got the credit up at the top there. Hey, Beeg, welcome. Good to see you, Beeg. We're taking a look at some 64DD games. Yeah, as you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but up in the top right, it is missing a couple of games. Japan Pro Golf Tour 64, and one of the, like, there was a second Doshin the Giant thing. What does that say? Talking Toddler Liberation Front Assemble. But yeah, thank you to Hydra Zeus. I'm using your picture here, but yeah, these this is the boxes that the 64DD came in. And let's see, I think I may have one other picture. Let me see what's up. Yeah, let's take a look at the system, not the fancy box art. And that is, there's the box art. There's our system. Binary said it was double-sided. 128 megabits would have been sick, but ironic because the Famicom disk system was proprietary floppies. Yeah. It's interesting that they went to these disk systems a couple times, you know? That's, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting decision. And I think it, again, it like made sense for a short amount of time, and then costs went down for cartridges, and then, yeah, it just wasn't that, it didn't make that much sense to keep putting it out. But yeah, part of me wishes they would have gotten it out sooner. It was delayed. It came out later than they wanted to. And hey, I want to move on, but if you want to hear a little what if, or just kind of a fun deep lore thing, I found like some I don't know, some like ad copy. I wonder where this was, but I found it's like a description of what's coming for the 64DD, and I thought that this is kind of fun considering it never, you know, came to the US. Never got out of Japan. The Nintendo 64 disk drive is the first writable bulk data storage device for a modern video game console. The 64DD unit sits beneath the Nintendo 64 console and plugs into the EXT expansion connector on the bottom of the system. 64DD discs will be bootable, meaning that they can be used without a cartridge in the system, although they can also be used in conjunction with the cartridge. Okay, I'll skip a little bit for the sake of time, a little bit of the hardware stuff, and I kind of want to get to At the end, yeah, it gets kind of fun. Games will be able to store lots of data, like every stat you can imagine in a baseball game, or every detail about the world and your character in an RPG or simulation game. The 64DD can also be used for future upgrades of games by providing new levels or characters. Once again, the Nintendo 64 will lead the way in video game technological innovation.
I'm a man! I'm 40!
What if, you know? One of the great what ifs of time. What if they got this thing out sooner and it actually did work out, you know? They got it out here in the around the world. And yeah, maybe we wouldn't be playing these 64 cartridges. Who knows? Or we'd have some and then the rest would be discs, right? Anyway, definitely a what if, and it does get me wondering. You know, it's just sad, you know? Why does stuff sometimes not make it out of Japan, you know? I'm not a huge conspiracy guy, but sometimes you gotta ask why, you know? And it just feels like if some of this stuff had gotten out of Japan, I just don't think they would have gotten control of it, honestly. I think the momentum would have just picked up and gamers just all around the world uniting behind the 64DD. I can see it happening. So, I don't know, just something to think about. Also, I've talked before about Japanese games and just, you know, pondering when you translate a game, when you localize a game, did we lose a little something, you know? A little bit of the author's intent. Maybe the author's intent isn't always the most important thing, right? Once you put a piece of art out there, you know, hey, people are going to do with it what they will, but, you know, sometimes it feels like I'm playing a copy of a copy. And then sometimes, you know, that's the best you can do. I grew up playing, you know, English titles for the 64, but man, I don't know, man. I feel like they're trying to keep us gamers down when they don't let this stuff out. Again, they're just, it's too powerful. And I just think every now and then the powers that be kind of nuked a release and it never made it stateside. I don't know. Just a thought. Yeah. Neither here nor there. Oh, by the way, 64DD, 1999, 24 years ago. That was a long time. That was a long time ago. And I absolutely remember the write-ups in Nintendo Power. We can talk more about the games for that too, if you want to. I may have something else, but yeah, it's yeah. Here's one for you. 14 years ago, Angry Birds. "14 years ago. Yeah. Kind of hard to believe. I remember my partner having this on like a really early Android device, and it was, you know, that thing was like it's kind of funny because for the time I remember thinking this is really cool, but then of course it was basically a brick, like you know, those early smartphones, they didn't last very long, some of them, or at least couldn't keep up with the way that the internet was changing, you know. Angry Birds, kind of hard to believe. I do remember playing some of this on her phone and thinking it was, you know, a fun distraction, you know. But damn, dude, Angry Birds, it was everywhere, and there was certainly a moment where it felt like you couldn't get away from this game. And it was just absolutely everywhere. It was a marketing juggernaut. And yeah, so you mentioned 100. Fireball said 100% stolen, a reskin game. Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, to me, it felt a lot like Worms, game that I had played quite a bit of over the years. You know, it's like a trajectory firing game. You know, I don't know if that's a genre, right? Trajectory firing game. It's probably somebody's favorite genre, but I feel for them. No, that's not nice. Yeah. All gamers are welcome. except for the Call of Duty bros. Angry Birds. What was that, 14 years ago? Oh my god. Yeah, what was the free game? We got to figure it out. And then also there was that there was the Flappy Birds, right? Is that the one that like was like big news for like a week or something, and then you never heard about it again?
Let's go.
I don't recognize Scorched Earth, Hanson. How about Candy Crush? There was a time for Candy Crush where Candy Crush was taking over the world, I feel. I don't really like doing a lot of gaming on phones. I feel like, I don't know. It ain't natural, man. So something about having a controller in your hand. Yeah, I don't know. Don't do a whole lot of gaming on phones. God bless you if you do. But, yeah. There was a time with some Angry Birds, borrowing my partner's phone, you know? Hey, you get bored sometimes. Yeah, Flappy Bird, I know I remember, like, it ripping off some, like, Mario stuff, or I remember seeing the, like, looked like exactly like the Mario pipe and other stuff, yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about that. All right. 14 years ago, Angry Birds, the year 2009. And that, folks, is your game history. Wow, I took a long time on that. We haven't even gotten to the gamer news. Let's talk some gamer news, shall we? Picking up on some stuff from the last couple days, still doing a little bit of catch up. You guys were talking about the Mario movie earlier, so you may have seen the headline that certain movie, let's see, fourth in the list there, got nominated for Best Song in a Motion Picture for the Golden Globe.
Let's go!
So, which is interesting because I don't think in the movie they even play that much of the song. I have not seen the Mario movie yet. I want to get to it. I don't know why I haven't gotten to it. Life, dude. Life just gets in the way. Crazy enough. But yeah, Peaches, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I did read that I guess that there is a longer version that is out there, or like the extended one. But yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. What else is on here? Addicted to Romance. This is like a Bruce Springsteen did this song. She Came to Me. Okay, what else we got? 3 songs from Barbie. Man, there must not have been a whole lot of music in motion pictures this year, you know? A lot of silent flicks. Barbie got 3. I saw the Barbie movie. I thought it was all right. I don't think, but like it's kind of crazy that it's out of how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Barbie is half the entries here. Yeah. Anyway, so that's in the gamer news. Again, yeah, not an expert on this topic. I have heard a little bit of the song, but I'm overall trying to avoid spoilers. So yeah. Anyway, Peaches, look at you. When I heard that Peaches was nominated, I couldn't help but think of the artist Peaches. I didn't realize the name of the song was Peaches, because again, I've been trying to avoid, whenever I see stuff, I look away, you know. But yeah, I was thinking about the artist Peaches, the very NSFW artist Peaches, has the song F the Pain Away. Yahoo! Mario likes that.
Let's go.
Okay, all right. Mario's down with some Peaches, you know? It just is what it is. That song featured in Lost in Translation in a strip club scene, and I just remember being like, what is this song? And then it just gets in your head, and it's an amazing earworm. It's a hilarious song. And then there's Peaches in the Super Mario Brothers movie. Totally different vibe to my understanding. More of a piano ballad. Thank you, Peaches. You might have seen some timeline news. We were talking about lore earlier, and a little bit about Zelda. I think we talked about Mario lore and canon versus lore and, you know, these distinctions. But I don't know if you guys saw this headline. This is not the first time that someone associated with Zelda has said this before, but Zelda producer Eiji Aonuma doesn't really care about the series' chronology. It's interesting because there was they've done like a couple of histories at this point, haven't they? Like there's been a couple of like published, at least one published history. And I think it's interesting. He said, I don't like to put too much stock in the chronology. And here it is, just to extend that quote here. I think, just as you say, this is a series that really lends itself well to each person playing, then thinking back and interpreting the story elements in their own way. He told IGN, we have these major players in each game with Zelda and Ganon and Link, and they each surface and play their roles in potentially slightly different ways in each title. But personally, I don't like to put too much stock in the chronology of the series, because from the design perspective, that can kind of box us in and limit where we're able to take the story as we continue making games in the series. And so I do think it's something that is best for people to interpret on their own. And yeah, I was kind of agreeing with many things you said. I wonder what the beginning to that was, or the reference, but I think I'm with what I'm seeing here in the chat. Ichigo, here's the thing. I really don't have a problem with thinking that every game in a franchise, or not necessarily every game, but at certain points in a franchise, you're just like, it could be in a different, it can be that franchise, but a different universe. And we don't have to get into like, oh, can they visit each other? And it could just like, you can retell that story over and over again. You can reset it, or, have it in many different settings. And I don't know. I feel with The Legend of Zelda, it's even in the name pretty much, it's I don't necessarily expect I don't really expect there to be a super locked down timeline. And I would rather them design the game around gameplay first and then come up with the story, because the thing about a story is, at this point with cutscenes and everything else, the story wouldn't determine the gameplay. You could write whatever story you wanted to, and then once you have a working, like, fun gameplay, then I think at that point you craft the story around what you have, and and then there's interplay between those two things, as they gel together. But yeah, I think it makes sense to start with, like, what makes for a fun game, what ideas do we want to pursue, and then I'm not saying, like, don't put effort and focus into a story, but with that being said, it's Zelda. I don't really I don't necessarily expect it. I don't even know if I really want like a super long and developed story, to be honest. I'm playing Yakuza 0. That style works in that game, I don't think I'd want that for old Linky boy.
Give me a hell yeah!
Yeah. But yeah, so I was just kind of curious. Seems like you guys, maybe I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on this too, but yeah, I don't have too much of a problem with it, I mean, some people really seem to hate him too, as the producer of the series for a while now. And I have to admit, I think I like Breath of the Wild, and for what it is. I've beaten it once. It took me a long time to beat it, but a lot of that is more to do with just where I'm at right now and how much games I'm playing outside of work. Because for a while I wasn't playing much at all, and now I'm playing mostly Tier, and not having too much time outside of this to play. When I do, it's hard to get into Tears of the Kingdom, But I think that those games are great in their own ways. And yeah, and I did really enjoy Breath of the Wild overall. And Tears I was liking too. I think it's a hard one to play in 15-minute chunks, you know? So I'd like to dedicate some more time to it.
Let's go.
Yeah. But I think that's that's next one up. No, that's it. Yep, that's it for our gamer news. That's it for back in the day as well. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We can keep talking about it. I'm gonna catch up with the chat as we get back into the game. But let's do a little Mario Golf.
It's almost over.